this point, it's not a secret that Taylor Swift has faced an insane amount of sexism in the music industry, much like the women before and after her. And this recent incident was no different. And it seems as though there won't ever be a last time when it comes to Taylor having to defend herself from sexist jokes in the media. Here's how Taylor Swift slammed Netflix for its deeply sexist joke in the show Ginny and Georgia. And be sure to stick around, cause it's a good one. First, the beginning, Ginny and Georgia. Netflix originals are often long-awaited and really popular, with Ginny and Georgia making huge rounds all over the world, as critics deemed its first season both good and messy. The story follows Georgia, a 30-year-old fun-loving mother to mature 15-year-old Ginny. And despite the mixed reviews on the show and its execution of the plot, one thing stuck. In one scene, Ginny and her mother are in the middle of a fight, prompting Ginny to repeat a very tired joke about the pop star. Ginny asks her mother why she cares and tells her that she goes through men faster than Taylor Swift.
You go through men faster than Taylor Swift.
And if you cringed at the scene, you were not alone. Next, what's wrong with the quote? Now, if you miraculously haven't been on the internet in the last 12 years, you might have missed what became a very tired and popular joke to throw around as an insult towards women. And it all stemmed from one woman in particular. And we're sure you may have guessed that it's Miss Swift. At some point in the early 2010s, people became way too comfortable making fun of Taylor for having too many boyfriends. Swift, in a Vogue interview years later, talked about how she felt it was unfair that she was made fun of for dating multiple people in succession when everyone in their 20s dates just as much. More so than that, Swift became infamous for writing songs about her exes, to the point where people would anticipate her breakups to then try and figure out what song in her album could be associated with someone she dated. Next, Swift's general response to the controversy. All that said, the jokes eventually died after Taylor rebranded in what's deemed her reputation era. Swift became much more private about her personal affairs and started speaking up about the sexism in the industry that every female artist supposedly faces. In her documentary titled Miss Americana, which accompanied her 7th studio album Lover, Swift talked about how the double standards set by the industry tend to benefit her male peers more so than they do female artists as a whole. This was also known to be the album wherein Taylor inserted herself in multiple political affairs, and as such made her political stance clear. Swift had finally decided to shut down any claims that might discredit her work or attribute her success to anything but talent and lyrical ability. And despite being steeped in many controversies, Swift has finally made an undeniable reputation for herself in the industry as a whole. Up next, Taylor Swift's scathing tweet. This is perhaps why Taylor felt it necessary to respond to a show released in 2021 which recycled such an old, offensive joke. Having Taylor's entire artistic personality be defined by the men she had dated is not only a subtle way to reprimand women for dating casually, but also does a disservice to her talents. In a tweet with a screenshot of the subtitles of the Netflix show, Taylor penned, "Hey Ginny and Georgia, 2010 called and it wants its lazy, deeply sexist joke back." But she wasn't done, no. In the same tweet, she also wrote, "How about we stop degrading hardworking women by defining this horse s as funny?" After all that, Taylor finally ended her tweet with a dig at Netflix, the streaming service itself. If you're unaware, Taylor's Reputation Stadium Tour concert and the Miss Americana documentary both reside on the streaming service. She tagged Netflix in her tweet and said that this outfit does not look good on you, especially after Miss Americana, her documentary that talked about sexism and these very jokes. She concluded with a happy Women's History Month, I guess. Next, fan response and contrasting examples. As expected, Swift garnered widespread applause for standing up to the joke instead of just letting it go. Fans of the musician even started to compare Ginny and Georgia with other famous TV shows that name-drop Taylor Swift without resorting to jokes with sexist undertones. A Twitter user in the replies gave the example of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, a comedy show that constantly mentions Taylor Swift in a way that is as funny as it is respectful. Most recently, Troye Sivan's most recent movie, 3 Months, also included a Taylor Swift Swift joke where his character says, "Oh, and expletive you for making me like Taylor Swift." Sivan revealed that he texted Swift the joke to make sure that she was alright with it before it made it into the script at all. Fans also used the example of popular shows like The Vampire Diaries, The Good Place, New Girl, and even The Big Bang Theory, as shows that have referenced Swift for comedy purposes and succeeded. In other Taylor Swift news, Damon Albarn's lies? Boy, you'd think that after Taylor shut down the writers of Ginny and Georgia, no one would consciously try to rehash an old joke again. But as it turns out, people can rarely resist opportunities to be called out by the singer-songwriter publicly. Damon Albarn, a fellow singer and most notably a part of the band Blur, recently talked about different celebrities and their music. In the interview, when asked about Swift, he responded by saying that Taylor does not write her own songs. Now this comes across as quite a shocker because Taylor, more than her voice, is known for her lyricism and songwriting ability. For someone like Albarn to refute it is not only ignorant and false, but also comes across as contradictory, since he praised Billie Eilish's music right before, and most of her songs are co-written with her brother Phineas. Next, Taylor's response. As we mentioned, Taylor is not done defending herself against people who constantly try to discredit her and her success. Quote, retweeting the interview, Taylor responded by saying that she was such a big fan of his until she saw the interview. She clarified that she writes all of her own songs and that his hot take was completely false and so damaging. She added to the tweet, saying that he definitely doesn't have to like any of her songs, but that it was really messed up to try and discredit her writing. She then scathingly added a "P.S. I wrote this tweet all by myself in case you were wondering." Damon tried to explain himself in the replies, but the damage had been done. Multiple influential figures, including most people who have even worked with Swift, commended Taylor for the dignified way she stood up to Albarn's false claims. Up next, Taylor Swift's All Too Well, described by Dylan O'Brien. For years, fans of Taylor Swift had begged her to release the 10-minute version of her hit song All Too Well from the album Red, and this past fall, she finally gave them the song. But in true Taylor Swift fashion, nothing was seen halfway through, and what fans received was a glorious mix of content that filled their appetites plenty. Swift even made her directorial debut with the short film released half a day after the album, which was received impeccably well. The short film, that may be somewhat autobiographical in its content, stars actress Sadie Sink and actor Dylan O'Brien in what seems to be an unhealthy relationship that eventually ends. For weeks after the song's release, it occupied the #1 spot on worldwide charts. In a recent interview with Entertainment Tonight, Dylan O'Brien shared that he believes the relationship depicted between him and Sadie Sink in the short film is nuanced in nature. He credited Taylor fully and said that it's not easy to achieve something like that, such a nuanced relationship dynamic. He said that it was really hard to execute, and that because the film sets up such authentic, insightful situations, it was just about set up for success. A success it received. Lastly, engagement rumors. It's hardly a secret that Taylor Swift has been in a committed relationship with fellow celebrity Joe Alwyn for a few good years now. And despite their understandable reluctance to share private details on social media, there's enough evidence that the pair are happy and in love. And so the conventional order of things would dictate that the pair should get engaged at this point. And as such, rumors about the pair's secret engagement and marriage run rampant every few weeks. There's an inside source that confirms the alleged engagement and romantic proposal, but there's no official news from either Taylor or her team, and the rumors fizzle out. And while these rumors are mostly harmless and fade away, some invade boundaries. In her Miss Americana documentary, Taylor talked about how fans and media constantly speculating about whether she was pregnant or not took a huge toll on her mental health and eating habits. So while the pair is very happy and very much in love by all alleged reports, and if Taylor's lyricism is something to go by, we cannot officially confirm the pair's happy engagement until they do so themselves. Until then, fingers crossed. That's a wrap for this video. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.